And I think a lot of women, anyone listening to this, that's the key. Your only job is just to want it, decide you want it, decide you can have it, and then the how will come. Everything fell into place for me. I didn't know how I was going to work part-time. I still get full-time money. I just wrote it down in 2017. I always remember that. Wrote it down in January 2017. And by January 2019, that became my reality.
All right. Hey, Embracing Only family. We're back again with another powerhouse woman. Today, we have Adelle Thompson with us. Adelle is a career change expert, a self-described self-doubt stopper, love that, and podcast host. She is a certified life coach with over 12 years of experience in leadership and management. She is also the owner of AT Enrich, where she helps women gain the confidence and tools needed to build a career that they love, that also pays them, and I quote, stupidly well to do it. She is absolutely amazing, and we cannot wait to get this party started here. Adelle, thank you for joining us.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. What a lovely introduction. I appreciate all the kind words. Thank you for having me.
Of course. So we'll jump right in here. So Adelle, both Archita and I have had a few pivots in our corporate life, but you took a big one, right? Pivoting out of your original industry into HR and then into kind of this part-time corporate, part-time woman boss helping to free other women. So can you talk to us a little bit about your early years in your career and that first big pivot to HR?
Yeah, absolutely. So I studied early years childcare. I thought I would always work with kids. I really enjoyed it. I taught kids for almost 10 years. I've taught children from 0 up to 17, but my main focus was like under 5-year-olds. And then I had my daughter and everything changed. I became a mum and I realized that I was putting so much effort and energy into other people's kids. And I enjoyed it and I loved it. But then I'd come home and not have that same energy for my daughter. I was tired and I felt like she was missing out. And then on top of that, everyone knows kids are expensive. And just like in the UK, in the US, I know across the world, teachers are underpaid. I was extremely underpaid. I had learned how to negotiate above the normal salary, but it's still, there was like a glass ceiling. So I was drained from my job. I felt like my daughter wasn't getting the best of me and I wasn't getting paid enough. So I decided I wanted to change careers. And after chatting with a friend of mine who I really trusted, who I worked with and who knew me through work, she said to me, I think you'd be really good in recruitment. Never thought about it. Never, just was teaching. I was running a nursery at the time. I was running the school. I would show parents around and I was managing a team and never thought of recruitment. And I asked her why. And she just said, you've got the right personality for it. So I started looking into talent acquisition, human resources, recruitment, and I was like, oh, I think this is what I want to do. However, call it lazy, call it strategic. I was not going to go back to school and study. I had already been in school long enough and I needed to figure out a way to get what I wanted without having to go back to school. And that's where it started. I started researching. Started looking into CVs and how you can update them, started asking people questions about recruitment. What is it like? Asking my friend because she had experience there, just getting as much information as I could. I put together a CV that I now understand to be a talent that I had. At the time, I didn't. I just put together a CV based on all the information, so resume for anyone in the US. So I put together my resume, just everything that I'd learned, everything I'd researched, everything I'd asked people about. And I put it out there and I booked some interviews in the recruitment and human resources space. And one of the first calls I had, the person was like, your CV made me so intrigued, I had to call you. And then the rest is sort of history. Went on a few interviews. Well, actually, I'll say this part just so your listeners understand that things don't always go the way we want. My first interview was a nightmare. I left there in tears. She told me I should stick to teaching. She said, human resources is not for you. She was someone I looked up to. I knew her in the industry. I knew her from the world of recruitment because she had helped me get staff for my school. I'd known her for years. And she said, listen, you're not cut out for this. I'll help you get a better teaching job. But HR, recruitment, talent, that's not for you. So after that knockback, went to 2 other interviews, got offered both of those, took a job. And 2 years after that pivot, the lady who told me I'd never do well in human resources reached out to me and offered me a role. So I say that just to say, you can figure out your route into something and other people's opinions aren't what they're cracked up to be. However, I have two sides. My friend's opinion where she said I'd be great in recruitment. Thanks to her, Amelia, thank you so much. Because if it wasn't for her, I wouldn't have even investigated this industry and realized it was for me. And then the opinion of someone who told me it wasn't for me. And then my ability to prove them wrong. So that was my first ever pivot. And yeah, so I moved into an industry where I had zero experience, zero qualifications, just a really good CV, armed with some networking and research information and the ability to sell myself. And at the time, I didn't know that I was selling myself, just the ability to showcase how my transferable skills could move across. And since then, I've done HR, I've done human resources, I've been a manager in human resources, training manager, I've done recruitment, I've been talent. So for the last 15 years, I've been in the world of recruitment, human resources, employment, talent. That's what I've been doing for the last 15 years after being told I would never make it. So yes, that's my first pivot.
So I have to double click here. And I know Archita, I might let you go first here because you already know what I'm going to say. The patterns are so consistent in what happens to women. But before I get on my soapbox, let me let Archita go here.
Gosh, I was just going to say that, there will be naysayers all day long when you can sit and listen to those naysayers. But I think you mentioned this in some of your posts, is that if people have not walked the same path that you're headed on, say goodbye next to the haters, as Olivia and I like to say, we don't have time for that kind of nonsense. We've got to keep charging forward and moving forward. But I do want to go a little bit deeper on that because you shared something. People's opinions are like buses 10 will show up at the same time, but only one matters. And it's the one you get on, aka your opinion, right? So dig a bit deeper to us because so many people, when they're making pivots, and this is something that I enjoy, I really have a passion for working with women on their corporate transitions, leaving the corporate world and they're done 15 years, 20 years in. And it's unreal. They have actual evidence of phenomenal work, actual data points that say that they're brilliant. But just as they're getting ready to take this big step, there is this all-consuming fear and terrible, debilitating self-doubt because of all these buses that have come by their stop to tell them that, hey, get on here, listen to us. So tell us more about how can people work through that and how did you get to this point too, Adelle?
What I will say is, first thing I always say is other people's opinions are not your business. And they really aren't your business. Everyone is going to have an opinion. Just like you said, I do talk about the fact that when we're making a transition, stop asking for people's opinions that haven't transitioned the way you're trying to. So people in this world have been taught one way to do something. And if they have done it that way, they believe that is the only way. So you have to understand, there are people that believe they went to school, they studied, they worked their butts off to get where they are. So when you come along and do it in a totally different way, not only does it smash to pieces everything they've always believed, but it almost angers some people because they're like, it's not fair. You have to understand as a woman, some of the opinions you're getting are from people in their own mind, not on purpose all the time, sometimes on purpose, not always. They're saying, this isn't fair. I did it this way, so you should have to do it this way. How dare you come along and tell me I could have done it 15 other ways? I think it's really important for us to understand that in life, if you look at your life as a whole, some of us will, learn to drive as teenagers. Some of us won't learn to drive till we're in our 20s or 30s. Some of us will get married really early. Some of us will get married later in life. We all have different points that we achieve the same goals, but in different ways. So the way I talk to people and people that come to me and people I work with is always saying to them, if you believe there is only one way to do everything, then what you are saying is that anyone who has achieved it the other way is a failure. That's just not possible. How many entrepreneurs do we know making thousands, millions, no degree? And then on the other side, people with degrees making the same amount of money, millions, huge companies. You've got two people, two different routes, same exact result. So my thing is always mind your business, just like I said. And with the buses, everyone's going to have an opinion. Sometimes we need to dig down and look at the source. My biggest thing is I will always say to you, what is the source? Who is the source? Are they living a life that you would want to live? That's the first question you need to ask yourself. We need to stop taking opinions from people we do not want to swap lives with. I don't want your life, but I'm taking your opinion as fact, as gospel. Family, friends, they are trying to keep you safe. That's all they're doing. Sometimes, like my mum, she was very much, when I decided to do certain things in my life, she was like, stay where you are. Why are you moving? You're in a good job. Because she wanted to keep me safe. Not because she thought I would fail, not because she didn't believe in me. She wanted me to be safe. I've got a child. I need to pay the bills. And when she realized I decided I was going to make this move, then she got right behind me and was like, this is the right time to do it. You're young. Cool. If you fail, you can go back to teaching. It's always going to be there. That's another thing. I think you mentioned something. You said that all these women have all these accolades. They have all this proof, all this evidence that they've done great things. Sometimes we need to remind ourselves of those great things and remind ourselves that we did those great things, and then use that as evidence to move ourselves forward and remind the people that doubt us, if I could achieve this, I could achieve 10 other things. What have they achieved? And if they've not assisted you to achieve the things that you've achieved, why would you let them assist you with their opinion?
Hi, everyone. My name is Olivia Cream. If you are a corporate girly and you are struggling, you're feeling stuck, maybe you're feeling underpaid, overqualified, you're struggling with your boss, or bigger yet, you're even trying to clearly articulate what it is that you want from your corporate career, I am the coach for you. So if you're ambitious and you've got goals to accomplish and you want to accomplish them quickly, check out my website, oliviacream.com. I would love to help you reach your goals.
Hi, everybody. I'm Archita Fritz, your other host of the Embracing Only podcast. If you're ready to leave corporate, or you've changed a couple of corporate jobs and want to start a profitable side brilliance, you've made the decision, but you feel unsure of the next steps, here's how I can help you. I can guide you through a successful transition to entrepreneurship to help turn those ideas into profit. So reach out to me on LinkedIn or visit me on architafritz.com to accelerate your empowered transitions. Now, back to the episode.
Literally, like I'm throwing a party over here. You guys know when people get going and I'm nodding so much. I'm like, my neck is going to be so strong. You dropped so many gems there. I almost want to rewind a little bit to make sure people didn't miss some stuff. So I'm going to take us back just a second here. Before we even got to what Archita and I call well-intended yahoos that want to give you advice that is unhelpful in the moment. They're well-intended, but not helpful for the moment. Before we even get there, you laid out your situation. You said you were underpaid. You didn't love that. You weren't making the money that you needed, that you knew you needed to support you and your daughter and live a lifestyle that you had identified you wanted to live, and you probably had a dollar amount in mind that you needed to make. So you were very clear about your financial goals. Then you said, what you were doing was misaligned to your values. I'm summarizing. So you were spending all this time on other people's kids, but what was most important to you, your own child, was not getting the same level of attention from you that you were pouring into elsewhere. So you were misaligned from your values there. And then you made a choice. You said, where I am today is misaligned from my finances, misaligned from my values. I am going to do something. Literally today, Adele, on Instagram, one of my girlfriends sent me a meme, and it was this poor woman. I actually made a post about it. You guys go check it out. There was this poor woman. I'm tired and I don't want to do this. And I don't want to climb the corporate ladder. And I don't want to fight for this. And I don't want to fight for that. And I'm like, ladies, if you feel like this, what does the universe have to do to you for you to decide that you want to do something different, right? So kudos to you for recognizing that you were misaligned and then making a decision to do something. Everything starts with those steps. What are your values? What do you want financially? Do you get those two things now? If you don't, well, then God bless, do something, because there's no one coming to save you. And then I think the third part to that is once you have decided, all right, this isn't it, I need to do something, then you went out and you found your bus, or what Archita and I call the village, the right village, your heck yes tribe, that's going to help you get to where you wanted to be. And then you ignored the people that were misaligned to your vision, because no one's going to see your vision but you. So your job is to go find the people that are going to help you accomplish this vision. The steps, ladies, for our audience listening, almost every powerhouse woman we have on this podcast has the same sequence of events. So I ask you, are you ready to do something? Or are you just going to sit here and accept what life is giving you? And before we get to your second piece here, I also wanted to share this because Archita mentioned the fear, right? Once you make a decision to do something, here comes the self-doubt, right? And we talked about it a little bit, right? You're to be your own cheerleader and be like, well, I accomplished all this stuff, so why am I hesitating to do this? And someone on LinkedIn described fear as false evidence appearing real.
Mm-hmm.
False evidence. Because if we stopped for a second and asked ourselves, where in my life did I fall down and was unable to get up? Most of us would be like, there is no evidence of this. But we stop ourselves from taking on these new challenges anyways, without going down the kind of logic path to be like, where is there evidence in my life where I've fallen down and never gotten up? It's likely not there. So push through that, ladies. Okay, so Adelle, now you pivot. Now you're in HR. You're rocking it out. You're in this new space. You didn't go get another degree. Hallelujah. Another gem for you ladies. You don't need, Archita's going to smack me because I'm a sucker for coach training programs, and you don't need it. So now you're in this HR space and you're rocking it out. How did you decide, or what made you decide, you know what, it's time to bet on yourself and maybe pare down the corporate life and make this pivot into freeing other women? What was the catalyst for that change?
Do you know what? It started with me, again, wanting to realign myself. It actually started with me saying, oh, I don't want to work 5 days a week anymore. I want to work 3 or 4, but make the same money. I didn't know how. I wrote it down. I always write down my goals. And I wrote it down and I said, I want to work 3 days a week, but not lose money. And that's all I wrote. And that's all I wanted to do. And in 2019, beginning of 2019, I think it was, I was able to renegotiate a contract up, my work contract, and do less days, but keep my salary. And when I did that, like knowing that I'd previously pivoted into a new industry, knowing that I'd negotiated big salaries before, knowing that I'd gone up to director level, still without the degree, still without holding a CIPD, which is the qualification in the UK that is very well known for when you're in human resources, knowing that I got to that level. And then on top of that was able to negotiate what everyone again told me you can't do. You can't work part-time in corporate for full-time money. So I did. And then before that, people were already asking me, how did you change industry? Help me with your CV, help me with this. So I was doing CVs for friends, for family. Companies were paying me to write interview questions. And just because I'd leave companies and go somewhere else, but then my old company would be like, can you write an interview system for us? Can you put together a whole system that we use? Like one of my old companies still uses the interview system that I put together. Like it just became this thing. And on the side, I never thought of that as something that could ever be a business. I was just using my skill set. I was getting paid a little bit extra here and there. I was helping for free because my friends were like, can you write my CV? I was helping them pivot. And then that realization, I was like, oh, maybe I can do something with this. So I said, let me start writing more CVs and let me start coaching people on interviews. And I wasn't calling it coaching at the time. I was just like helping people with interview prep, helping people with CVs. Then I was like, oh, maybe I want my own business. Maybe I want another stream of income. I now only work part-time, like a few days a week. I've got off. So why don't I see what I can do with my time? Jumped on Instagram, started to try and tinker about, really didn't know what I was doing. Wasn't a coach, just was like, I help single moms rewrite CV so they can pivot. That was it. Just if you want help with your CV, reach out. Started posting, started doing a little bit of lives. Like it took me 6 months to show my face because I was petrified, didn't want to be online, didn't want anyone to know I was doing it. And then people started reaching out and people started calling me a coach. So they were like, coach, can you help me do this CV? Oh, then posting me and saying, Adelle's one of the best coaches. She's helped me do this or she's helped me do that. And I was like, I'm not a coach. What is this? And then people started calling me a life coach. And I was like, maybe I'm a life coach. Looked into it, did a bit of research. Olivia will be happy. I did a training course. So decided in that situation. And I think degrees, courses, certificates, they're important if you want them. But it's important to know they're not needed for a transition. But if you want them, I wanted to understand what coaching was. I wanted to understand who was I in this coaching space? How would I coach people? What would I coach people? Went and did that. While I was doing my training, I was still helping with CVs, doing interview prep, coaching people without having the title of coach. When I finished my program, I was like, oh, you're a coach. And this all fell really nicely because obviously this all happened like mid-2019, started my page, started doing everything. Then 2020, we all know what happened at the beginning of 2020. I then was put on furlough at home. I was bored. I had nothing to do. So I just kept growing that biz, kept working on what I'd already started. But I almost say to people, I fell into entrepreneurship. I never thought I would be an entrepreneur. I thought I was going to become a director, run someone else's business and make a crap load of money. That's all I ever thought I was going to do once I transitioned. I actually fell into entrepreneurship. And I think it was because I was always helping people. People was always coming to me and asking me for my skill set. I never thought my skill set was valuable, but people kept saying, oh, can you do this for me? I'll pay you a little bit of money. I'll be like, no, I'll just do it. And then people just started paying me. I then set up a first aid company, a CPR company on the side with one of my friends. We were like, oh, everyone needs CPR. We needed CPR for our company, basically. And there was no one available to train us. So we decided to become CPR trainers. And we did that. And then it just became this whole, oh, I've got a 9 to 5, but also I do this CPR company. I do a bit of CVs and a bit of this. And I was like, okay. And then people just started saying to me, you seem to have the entrepreneurial spirit. Never really knew what that meant. I had an interview with someone earlier today, and I think it's just a little bit of delusion. I believe that I can make anything work. I believe that if you're in corporate, you can negotiate your pension because I said so. Not because anyone told me I could, just because I was like, why can't I? I believe that I could negotiate part-time hours for full-time money. So I tried. It's never a thing where I know how something's going to work out. It's more about, I want that thing. How can I figure out how to get that thing? And I think a lot of women, anyone listening to this, that's the key. Your only job is just to want it, decide you want it, decide you can have it, and then the how will come. Everything fell into place for me. I didn't know how I was going to work part-time. I still get full-time money. I just wrote it down in 2017. I always remember that. Wrote it down in January 2017. And by January 2019, that became my reality.
Gosh, Adelle, I'm like, I need to be making furious notes here because there's just so much stuff there that is so valuable for our listeners. Because we hear this so often. First of all, kudos to you for one, being delusional, because that is the best asset you could ever have. I cannot emphasize that enough. For anyone who tries something that goes beyond that self-doubt that's pushing them back, you've got to be a little delusional. And I was just walking up the stairs to record this episode here today, and I got a big fat no from one of my clients, okay? And I was just walking up and I was just shouting to myself, it doesn't matter. I still got this. I'm going to go do this. Like, I was just like, and I'm like, and I told these words to myself, gosh, I'm so delusional, but I don't care. But that's the bloody reality, because how many people do you hear? Because you probably heard 100 people telling you, that's no way, Adelle, you're going to be able to negotiate a part-time salary for a full-time job, right? Like probably 1,000 of your mom probably was
everyone.
And everyone. Right?
Everyone. There was no one in my life who said it was possible.
Yes, but that's the thing. You've got to make the ask. If you don't make the bloody ask, you will never know. But there's also an art to making the ask as well. And you talk about this where you say that learning how to sell and negotiate are must-have skills for success. You were a teacher. You were helping children build like the futures that they deserve. You pivoted into HR, and sure, in HR, you put on the other side of the table helping people, like getting your company and the interview candidate where they needed to go. But you had already mastered this trick. And when I say trick or the skill set, quite frankly, around selling and negotiating, because you sold your way, selling your brand, your transferable, adjacent, like brilliant self and skills without a degree. But there's some, and my gosh, my head is going in 10 directions because of all the stuff that you landed. So I want to first unpack that. And the second one is you got really clear of who you serve, Adelle. And this is so, so important. You say that it was, you just went on Instagram and you said, oh, but you said single moms who are looking to pivot in a CV. That is so critical. You were really clear because you took the signs of who's coming to you. Because a lot of times we ignore all the damn signs that are coming to us because we're so damn focused on this arbitrary title that we're chasing in the corporate world that we completely miss out on the signs. But you listen to the signs, and then you're like, I'm going to almost what I call is these tiny experiments. I'm going to try this out. Single moms, blah, blah, blah. And boom, you started getting the traction you needed because you resonated with that, what we call in marketing language, ideal customer profile. But you knew who you were serving. And I feel like our listeners need to hear, we're getting so many signs every day. If you're a director at any damn company, there are like hundreds of people who are behind you, who are probably reaching out to be like, hey, can I have a one-on-one with you? Can I have a coffee with you? Or stopping you after a presentation. Wow, that was so impactful. How did you learn how to do this? Those are all the dang signs. So listen to those signs and then act, right? So when you act, I want to get to this part. How do people learn to sell and negotiate? Because it is two of the hardest dang skills, especially when you have been, I would say, brainwashed to believing that bands determine your next salary raise, your talent box and your performance review determines A, B, C, D, E. How do you talk past that to position yourself for success?
Oh, I think selling, like you said, selling and negotiating, I talk about this all the time. Selling, one of the key things is what are your key competencies? What are you great at? Don't worry about what you should be great at. What are you actually great at? Like in my job in human resources, I do a lot of different things. I wear a lot of different hats. I have to be able to do compliance and governance and recruit people and know who's right for which manager and know who's booking for interviews and be able to look at a CV. I do so many things. But what I know I'm great at is problem solving. I can see a problem. I can fix it. I also know I'm a good communicator, verbal communication. I'm good at verbal communication. I can speak to people, anyone in the corporate line. It doesn't matter if it's the VP. It doesn't matter if it's an entry-level junior. I can speak to anyone and they can connect and relate to me. I used those two skills and decided, how do they help me do a great job? And I think this is where you build your confidence. This is where you build your sales skills. People always think about selling, what they think of like the car salesman, like doing the over-the-top selling. No. When I started selling myself, I just told people what I was good at. And I kept telling people what I was good at. So if you can figure out what are you good at, you don't need to be good at 30 things. I always tell people that I speak to 3 things. What 3 things are you good at? Now, figure out how those 3 things have helped you in your life and in your career. Now, when you talk about those things, have a brag book. We remember all the bad things we do. We don't write down what we do good. The more you can figure out what you're good at, the more you can figure out, I can look back in my life and be like, oh, these are all the times when I've problem solved my way out. These are all the times when I've communicated my way into negotiating, whatever it was. How do I negotiate? Communication. How do I sell? Communication. So no, I wouldn't say I'm a salesperson. How else do I sell? Honesty and integrity. When I first got into recruitment, they were like, oh, you're going to have to fancy up the truth or bend the truth a little bit. And I was like, nah, I can sell to someone and tell them the absolute truth. And I did. And that's how I sold. So selling is about, what are you good at? How has that shown up in your career? Because sometimes we'll say things like, oh, I'm super organized. And then when I say something to someone, dig deeper, tell me how your organization has helped you win in your career. They can't. And I'm like, nah, that's not it. That's not the strength. What are your strengths? What has helped you win in your career? What has helped you win at life? What has helped you win at being a mum? What has helped you win at being a partner? Who are you and what are you great at? Figure out how you can talk about those things repeatedly. I can talk about stories where I've problem solved over and over again, but I couldn't necessarily talk about stories where I've done something great with mathematics because I'm not great with maths. So I don't focus on what I'm not great with at. I focus on what I am. And I talk about that over and over again. That's all selling is. Selling is telling someone what you're good at and how it can help them. But until you figure out what you're good at, you can't tell someone else how it can help them. So that's literally all I do to learn to sell. Like selling is not this complex thing that people tell you. Selling is talking about what you're good at and how that thing is valuable to someone else. Me being good at problem solving is valuable to my company. It helps my company make money. And I can tell them exactly how because I've really honed in on the fact that problem solving is my skill. I've really honed in on the fact that communication helps me get you new customers, helps me keep your current customers, helps me impact your bottom line. So when I'm talking about it, people are like, oh, communication, how do you talk about how that makes money? I just did because I'm able to get your customers and your clients to want to keep working with you. And I'm able to convince people that this is where you need to be just from a conversation versus someone else might be able to do that by putting together like business plans or in writing. They might be great at emails. Like, what is your selling point? So I think selling, again, like I said, is just you figuring out what you're great at and how someone else would use it. And then negotiation is just an even exchange. Negotiating is just, I know what I'm good at. You want it. This is how much it's going to cost if you want it. Or this is what it's going to cost for you. We negotiate every day. Anyone who's a parent of a young child, you negotiate every single day of your life. Because to get a 2-year-old to do the thing you want them to do, you're already negotiating. You have that skill set. People think we don't. You already negotiate every day of your life. If you ever convince the teacher to change your grade because you felt like they missed something on your marks, you negotiated. You've been negotiating. People just think they don't negotiate. I can almost look at someone's life and tell them where they negotiate versus them sitting back and saying, oh no, I'm scared of negotiating. I don't like the back and forth. I promise you, there's some area of your life where you negotiate. People negotiate in their relationship with their partner, their husbands. Like, I want to do this. No, I want to do this. Who wins is the person who negotiated the best. So that's what I would say about selling and negotiating. These are skill sets you already have. It's just you really looking at understanding what they are and not looking at them from a societal perspective. Like selling, oh, high, cheesy, loud, look at me. Like, that's not sales. Sales is just letting someone know what you're good at and how it can help them, and then giving them the room to decide if they want that thing.
I love that. And I want to double click in here for a second here, because Archita, I think a lot of women that come to us, specifically to the salary negotiation part, you said something, Adelle, that's so important, because I think sometimes women aren't necessarily ready to pivot, but they're like, I'm not making enough money. Right. HR will come at you and say, here's the pay band, and you can only get an 11% increase because that's industry standard if you're getting a promotion, blah, blah, blah. None of that needs to apply to you if you apply what Adelle is saying here. But the trick is understanding your value to the company. If you have made yourself valuable enough, they will pay you whatever the heck you want to keep you in the company. I've seen it happen time and time again. And sometimes when we talk about like the broken rung syndrome, for example, what is happening is our male counterparts recognize their value. They recognize their superpowers and they're like, pay me or I walk, right? Now, you don't necessarily have to be so aggressive. That's a very aggressive negotiation tactic. I don't necessarily recommend the pay me or I walk style. But I will tell you, you will be very successful in selling value. If the company, for example, is struggling with talent acquisition, like in Adelle's case, and you can write an amazing interview program that's helping them not swing and miss and avoid the cost of a mishire, you just made yourself super invaluable. So there's two pieces in summary that I want people to take away here. One, you have to know your superpower. You have to know your superpower. And if you are struggling, to Adelle's point, to really articulate what your superpower is, go ask somebody. I promise you they will tell you. Everybody around you knows what your superpower is, because we as humans are wired to be like, oh, this person is good at this. I can leverage them for that. Oh, this person, your boss knows what you're good at, right? Because you're an asset to the company. Otherwise, they wouldn't be paying you, and they will tell you exactly what you're good at. So if you haven't figured it out for yourself, this might be something that you can walk away from this conversation, a tangible thing that you can take away from this conversation. Go ask your village. Go ask your parents, go ask your spouse, go ask your best friends, go ask the people at work, even the people that you don't like at work, because even them will be able to be like, oh yeah, you're really good at these things. They might say it sassily, but you'll get some consistency and really listen to what people are telling you, and you will find some patterns in what people are saying is your superpower. Once you realize what that superpower is, monetize the heck out of it. Monetize it, ladies. Like, we're women. We do like a million things amazing a day, right? Things that we just do naturally. Take those skills and don't be afraid to take the leap and branch out and do something for yourself, even if it's on a trial basis, right? Adelle did. She didn't just quit her job. Like, she had a little one to feed. She didn't haul off and quit and say, what to hell with it? I'm going to go do this big pivot. It was an incremental shift, which is absolutely appropriate unless you're in a super toxic environment, which, to quote one of our previous guests, Cindy Gallup, unless it's toxic and they're wearing you out. And then if that's the case, then you need to get the hell out of there and do the big pivot. But if it's not, a soft pivot is totally, totally fine. So changing gears here just a little bit, because I want to get to some of the trends that you're noticing in your coaching practice, Adelle, with the remaining time here. So Archita's talking to women and coaching them and doing their pivots and doing big career changes, as well as being a fractional marketer extraordinaire. I'm coaching women within the confines of corporate, helping them recognize their superpowers and climb that corporate ladder if that's what they want to do. So in your space where you're coaching women, what are the patterns that you have observed over time that really hold women back? And what are your recommendations for how women can overcome some of those? And we probably don't have time for the list of them, but maybe your top 3 things that you have seen.
One of them is something that you just mentioned about how men will think they're great. And I don't necessarily always think that's the case. I think men will try their luck. Women don't have that. That's why women wait till they meet 100% of a requirement before they apply versus men meeting 60 or 70. When I pivoted, I met about 30% of the criteria. Guess what? I made that 30% so valuable, people couldn't pass up interviewing me. So that's the first thing. I see women not willing to try. They're just like, they've already disqualified themselves. So they've decided, oh, it's not possible. It's not possible to ask for more money. It's not possible. You said about industry norm, like the salary norm. If you are outperforming all your coworkers, you are not an industry norm. So why should your salary be an industry norm? Ask yourself these questions. Like, we're saying, oh, we got to stay within 11% and 15%. At one point in my career, I saved the company 1.3 million. All I needed to do was ask them, who else is saving you 1.3 million? No one else. Okay, so therefore I'm not an industry norm. I would expect my salary not to be an industry norm. Sometimes, and it's not as harsh as that. I'm much more articulate when I'm having my negotiations, but it's just, that's my thought process. So instead of disqualifying yourself, just try. That's the first thing. I see that pattern in most women. It's not that they can't do something. It's that they've never actually tried. They come to me and say, I can't negotiate. How many times have you tried? Maybe once, maybe never. Okay, so you can negotiate. You've just never tried. So try. That's one of the first things I see in a lot of women. Self-doubt. We spoke about it earlier. Most people, we doubt that we're even capable of amazing things. It takes the same amount of effort to doubt yourself as it does to believe in yourself. And I sometimes say that mindset work is really important. However, sometimes when we're stuck in a mindset loop, it's really hard. So sometimes you have to almost action yourself through a mindset step. So when it comes to self-doubt, I see a lot of women doubting their ability. I would say the next step when you're doubting your ability, again, it goes back to my first point, just try. Who cares? Just try. If you're telling yourself, I can't, either prove yourself right or prove yourself wrong. The only way to do that is to take the action. And I'm a big believer in that. Just take the action. Prove yourself wrong or prove yourself right. One way or the other, you're going to get an answer and you're going to stop asking yourself, what if this? What if that? The only way you can answer a what if is by actually doing the thing. So I would say that's like the other thing I see in a lot of women. And then third thing I see in women is, money. Being afraid to have a money conversation. Being like really scared of big numbers. Not necessarily because they don't want the big numbers, because they can't equate what their value is to the big number. So that post that everyone has seen, this post where it says a bottle of water costs like 50p at the newsagents, £5 at a festival and £100 at this area. The same bottle of water, it's just a different location. I say to women, sometimes you need to get yourself out of the location you're in. Because I know marketing people, I've worked with marketers, and I've worked with someone who's done marketing campaigns is only earning 40k a year versus someone else who does the exact same job in another company and is on almost 100k. Same roles, just two different environments. So sometimes change your environment. It's not that you're asking for too much. It's that you're asking the wrong person. Go ask someone else. So money, we have to have more conversations about money. We also have to have a little bit more comfortability around money. You do not need to ask people what they're earning, but you can say to someone, do your research, ask people in the industry that you want to go into, what kind of salary should I be looking for? You don't have to say to them, what are you on? You can say, is 50k realistic for what I'm on? If they're on way more than that, they'll probably say to you, nah, I would be asking for 70 or 80,000. Go and have a conversation, build your network. But we have to have money conversations. Money conversations have to be had. And again, if you feel like you can't ask for that amount, you're probably just asking the wrong person. If your ask doesn't scare you a little bit, you're definitely not asking for enough. And if no one has ever said to you, that's too much, you've never pushed yourself. You've never asked for enough. If you've never heard the words, you're asking for too much. You've never asked for enough, because someone should be saying to you, oh, that salary's too high. If you never heard those words, you've never asked for the right amount. You've never sold yourself and asked for the right amount. If every time you negotiate salary, they say yes, you lowballed yourself. It should never be as easy as that. It should be a little back and forth. So that would be my tip.
Gosh, amen to all of that. Whatever religious affiliation you have, still amen to that. Because that was such like the gospel essentially on negotiation and like showing up in and out of the workplace. There is this, I wrote on 3 bullet points. So you said first, if you have not negotiated and they've said no, you've never really tried. 2, self-doubt. You're capable of amazing things. Go past it. And then 3, you can fix mindset all day, but only true change comes through action. And I'll say 3, #star is have those money conversations. So critical. So I'm going to go a little bit deeper. So there's this book. It's like a tech bro. So whatever. Don't read the book. But this is a good nugget from the book. Okay. There's this guy. His name is Nick Kagan or something like that. He's the founder of AppSumo. Okay. So really brilliant guy. Was fired from Facebook. He was employee number 23. And he turned his life around. 8-figure businesses that he built and everything else. And he talks about how you start having those uncomfortable conversations. And it starts in the coffee shop. So the next time, ladies, this is the bloody hardest thing to do. I've done it. And it took me 2 months to have asked this stupid question, but I was like, what are they going to think? Okay. And so you go up to the coffee shop, the guy, you're going to get your coffee or your tea or whatever. And when you place your order, tall frappuccino with oat milk and skinny latte or whatever the heck that is, say that, hey, can I get a 15% discount? And just wait. Do not say why. Do not say anything. Just be really comfortable in that absolute discomfort, because you're asking. There's nothing to lose. There is literally nothing to lose. So they're going to look at you and be like, what the hell? No. Be like, okay, I thought I'd ask. That's it. That's your response. You don't need to do anything. You'll be surprised when they say, yes, let me do it. So I tried this. I was so stupid. It should not be so hard, right? It's really not that hard. It's a coffee shop conversation. I'm literally asking each and every one of you to do this because it's going to make you feel so free. Literally, you're going to push your hair back. You're going to walk out of that coffee shop like, dang, I did something so hard. But the guy was like, no, because it's also Germany. And they're like, what the hell are you doing breaking rules? But they were like, no. But then he's, you know what? You can have this discount card for the next time. So what the heck? Why not? So try this out, please. I'm really imploring you to do that. And I say this because I posted about this on LinkedIn today. One of my peers was sharing with me yesterday that the quote, and it's all over the internet. Nobody knows who claims to have said it, but it says that success is directly proportional to the difficult conversations you're willing to have. And I cannot stress this enough. We live, and I was one of them. I was one of those corporate warriors. I lived 17 years of my life being like, you know what? No, this is the structure. I used to advocate for people on my team all day long to get pay raises, but I never did this for myself. So don't go give yourself a pat on the back because you can negotiate for others on their behalf. Because if you can't do it yourself, change it and have those difficult conversations. But to your point, there is communication and there's strategic communication to how you have these conversations and how you approach them as well. And we had one of our guests, Dorothy Mashburn, she's a negotiation coach. She shared this, Adelle and Olivia. She said on the podcast a few episodes ago, don't negotiate against yourself. How many times do we show up and people are like, I usually charge $5,000 for a 4-month program. If it's too much, we can always talk about other options. What kind of garbage is that?
Oh my God. Who does that? Why would you do this?
People do that, Olivia. So many people, they're like, I've done a really good job in this last few months. I would really love to talk to you about a 15% raise, but I know it's not the right time where budget is in. So maybe, what the hell? No, shut up after that first sentence and just stop.
Be comfortable in the silence. That's what it is. People are uncomfortable, so they feel the air. Oh, I can do it for less. Instead of just saying it's 5,000, just wait. Just like you said about at the coffee shop, just say, can I get 15%? And wait. As humans, we're so uncomfortable with the silence.
Oh, this is such a pro tip. Adelle, you nailed it. That is such a pro tip. We get so uncomfortable because we're afraid and we're uncomfortable and we're telling ourselves this story reel in our head that, oh my God, they're going to hate this. They're going to think I'm greedy. They're going to, and so before you even finish your ask, you're already talking yourself out of it. Please just stop. Just ask and take a breath. Like, I literally tell people, ask what you're asking. And then in your head, I want you to count to 15. And I don't care if you have to think about sexy time with your husband today to get your mind off of the uncomfortableness. You think about that while you're waiting for them to answer you. Distract yourself. Distract yourself if you need to, like, aggressively, so that you can sit in the silence. And us introverts, I'm a self-described introvert here. I am happy in the silence. I'll just be like, and look at you and be totally fine with it. But for all the extroverts out there, or if you're driven by fear and you haven't really gotten that under control, you're trying something new and the fear is getting you, stop, count to 15. 15 is going to feel like an eternity. I promise. Just do it. Just look at them until you get an answer. So Adelle, this has been as amazing as Archita and I thought it was going to be. So I'm going to take us home here, but I think some of the highlights that you hit for us is don't be afraid to pivot. You don't need another doggone degree. Ladies, if you come to me with another 3-letter acronym behind your name talking about you got to go collect, please stop. But you don't need it. You want it for your comfort. You do not need it. Figure out your superpower. Get comfortable talking about money, okay? And only allow those voices that are in your heck yes tribe or that are doing what you want to do to occupy space in your brain. I think those are the big 5 from today. If you guys enjoyed this episode like we did, we encourage you to go check Adelle out. As you have heard, she's going to drop some gems. She's going to push you. She's going to help you get clear. She's going to help you reach your goals. And she's going to make sure you get paid stupidly well in the process. So Adelle, how can people get a hold of you?
I'm always hanging out on LinkedIn or Instagram. They are my 2 favorite places to be. So yeah, Adelle Thompson over on LinkedIn, or Coach Adelle T over on Instagram. There's only one me, so it's Coach Adelle T. Anyone else is an imposter, guys. And then the other place that you can listen to me chatting away, interviewing guests, just like something like this, is on my podcast, and that's called 5 for 2 Careers, because we will not trade 5 days of misery for 2 days of fun. So yeah, come and join me over there as well.
Yes, I love it. Adelle, thank you so much. Archita, any final words for our audience here?
No, just thank you, and write down get a pencil and paper, go back and listen to this all over again, and write down the gems and then go practice it. Because this has been just fabulous, Adelle. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me. I've really appreciated my time with you guys. It's been so much fun. So thank you.
Thank you. As always, team, take care of yourselves and take care of each other. Until next time.